Are you using tools that just don't offer the kind of functionality you need? For example, maybe you are tracking your tasks in Asana, but what you really need is when your tasks reach a certain stage, you need to take some kind of action. Maybe you need to build a quote, for example, but Asana's not really built for that kind of functionality. Well, in this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to integrate your existing systems. I'm thinking about things like Asana, Taskmaster, Harvest, whatever software you're currently using that's just not enough, we're going to integrate it with Airtable using a beautiful Zapier connection, and then we are going to be able to build the functionality we really need in Airtable. So if learning more about how to integrate across your different software is of interest to you, stick around and let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth and this is Gap Consulting. It's my mission here to help you unlock the full potential of no-code tools and software in 2025. And in this video, we're going to be featuring Zapier, one of my favorite tools in the no-code space, and we are integrating it specifically with Airtable. Now, if you've never used either of these tools before, let me start by just giving you a bit of a high level in terms of what they do. Airtable is a relational database in the cloud, and it allows you to build your own applications or apps without needing to know any code whatsoever. Now, I know that sounds like a big promise, but believe me, we have built thousands of different applications, and we can do pretty much everything that you could imagine in Airtable, and most of the time never need a line of code. Now, the power behind Airtable is in its relational database components. This allows us to build different kinds of hierarchies. So we could build tasks that attach to projects that are assigned to users and all kinds of advanced functionality from that. Similarly, Zapier is another no-code tool, and this tool allows you to connect pretty much everything that is based in the cloud that has an open API. So this allows us to take systems like Asana that are kind of rigid in the way that you can build within them, and allows us to integrate information directly from Asana and plug it right into Airtable. You might have heard Zapier being called the glue of the internet before, and it's with good reason because it allows you to connect all these different components, and it's really the plumbing of a lot of the solutions that we build in software these days. Now, for our example, I'm going to be actually showcasing a live project that I'm working on right now for a client. And in this particular case, they are using Asana, and they get some more functionality out of Asana perhaps than most of us, but they essentially want to build a quote from something that's being tracked in Asana. And unfortunately, Asana really isn't built to handle this kind of logic. But we can use Airtable, the relational database components, to build some kind of quotation or quoting process inside of our Airtable application. And we can integrate it seamlessly with Asana so that when we're ready from Asana, we can trigger the automation to send all the relevant information over to Airtable. Now, at a high level, let's jump into my screen and take a look at what I built for us in Airtable. Airtable's highly flexible, so we can create whatever different pieces we need inside of our solution. So here we created a table for our customers, which connects to the table for our quotes. Now, similarly, we have multiple versions of our quotes that we might work through. So that's another table. Each version consists of line items, which comes into our fourth table. And then the line items are relating to our product list. So these are our actual products that we sell or different things that we offer within our quotes. And it all rolls up one layer after another because these things are kind of tiered as the way they connect on down the process. Now, what we want to do for our example is trigger our automation from Asana when something reaches the proper status. So let's flip on into Asana and take a look at what we have here. So I have this sample test bid. It's called Gap Test Bid. And when it reaches the right status, you see currently it's in the open bids status. Well, when it gets moved into the next status, we have one in particular called Create in Airtable. So after a bid moves from the open bid stage to the next stage, Create in Airtable, that will be the trigger that we're looking for. We will then initiate our automation via Zapier to create the corresponding information in Airtable. But it's much more than that because for this particular client, they also need to connect with a Google Drive folder that has not yet been created. We're going to do all of this in one fell swoop. So let's go ahead and pop into Zapier now and take a look at what the system is designed to do. So first and foremost, we're looking for an updated task. Let's pop into the draft so we can actually look at how this is structurally set up. So in the setup here, we're choosing the Asana app or software that triggers the automation. And the options before us are we can wait for a task to be completed. Well, we're not really completing tasks in this particular case. We're moving it into a particular stage. We have new attachments are added, new comments, new subtasks, new project, new storing. You'll notice we don't have something that specifically says moves to a particular status. So what we do instead is we are just watching all updated tasks. And the nice thing about the way Zapier works is just because the automation triggers does not mean we're going to be dinged against our task count. So a task is only deducted from our balance of tasks when we complete an action step. And so the trigger is not going to take a task away from our balance. And in addition, the filters that I've applied next are also not going to. But before we move on, we have to configure this. And so for us, we need to watch the specific fields. So what we're telling Zapier here is, I want you to only trigger when specific fields have a change. And if we flip back to Asana, our bid status here, the open bids current status, but this field called bid status, this field exists because my client added it to their Asana. So in this particular case, this field is a custom field, and you can figure out what kind of field it is simply by going through your fields and finding the relevant information and making sure that you're watching the fields that you care about for your automation. So that's the trigger, but then the next part is the filter. We have to add a filter here that says, I only want to continue if it's a very specific status. So again, the idea here is that our client in Asana is updating the status of a task in Asana to the create in Airtable. When that happens, it will pass through our filter and therefore go on to the next stage in the automation. Anything that is not that status will fail this filter, and it will not cost us anything on our Zapier account because it will only have consumed one trigger and one failed filter, which does not count against our tasks. So here we are now in our third step, assuming that we have a record where we actually updated that bid status, and it is now create in Airtable status, and it moves through our filter. Now it's time for us to set up our Airtable where we are going to find the quote numbers. Now the reason for this is my client has a very specific way that they like to number their bids. So depending on the year, they're going to start off with a number at the beginning of the bid. In the case of 2025, that number is 16. And then after that, they want a dash, and then they start with the number 100. So the very first bid that they sent out in January of 2025 had the number 16-100. And every subsequent bid ticks up by 1. So how can we do this? How do we know what to number this bid? Well, the easy way is to leverage a little bit of code. Yes, I know this is a no-code tool, but with ChatGPT doing what it does these days, it's actually pretty simple to just have a quick conversation with AI and ask it to spit out some JavaScript or other code to use inside of your Zapier automation. But before we do that, before we decide what the next quote number is, I have to know what the biggest quote number is in Airtable. So basically, I'm performing a find record search. So I'm looking in my quotes table here, and I'm looking for the number. It says job number, but actually the field has been updated to quote number inside of Airtable. But what I want to do is only look at a specific view, and I'll show you why. Let's flip back into Airtable here. We'll go into our quotes, and you'll notice I have a view built for Zapier script. This particular view is filtered. It's showing me only records where the quote number is not empty and that they have been created within the past 365 days or so, within the past year. And this is relevant because it's going to show me the newest quotes, and from here I can actually look at those quote numbers and then use that in my script and increment accordingly. The best part about the script is when it turns January of 2026, I don't have to rewrite the script. It's going to know that the next quote starts with 17 dash, and it will be 100. That's how we wrote it. Again, I don't actually code, but this code came from ChatGPT, went a couple of rounds with him, and the output is in step 4. So what happens here? We're running some code by Zapier. This requires that you're on a premium or pro Zapier account, and then we are going to run some JavaScript. And in the script, basically all I'm doing is calculating the year and deciding what the starting numbers of the quote number will be. And then I am going to increment by 1 more so that whatever my input was in the quote numbers here, you'll notice I'm putting it in an input of previous codes. Well, it's going to find the biggest one of those codes. It's going to increment 1 more than that biggest number, and then that will become the quote number. But we're not even close to being done because next we are creating a folder in Google Drive. So here we are going into configuring. We're going to create a folder as an action step, and then we can create the folder with the folder name that we got as an output from our code. And so in this case, well, you can see the sample data was 16-111, but when we run the automation next, of course, that number will increment. And then we're going to create the quote in Airtable. So now that we have the component or the folder built in Google Drive, we're going to go back now into Airtable, and here we will create a new record for this quote. Of course, we're going to bring the name from Asana, which I have to blur out here. We're going to bring in the quote number that we created in the 4th step. We'll link to the customer. We will bring in the Google Drive folder URL that we created. And then ultimately at the end of it, all we want to do is go back to Asana now. We're going to update the very task that triggered the automation in the first place. We're going to update the job number with the job number that we created in Airtable, and also update the bid status. We're going to move it from create in Airtable and update it to in progress. And this is how we can connect 2 different processes using Zapier. Let's go ahead and publish our Zap. I haven't made any real edits here, but we'll go ahead and set it up to go live, and we will do a test run to see exactly how this information flows. Now that we walked through the Zap, let's take a look at it in action. I'm going to head into Asana and test it with our Gap test bid record. I move to the custom field of bid status, and I update the status to create in Airtable. That should trigger our automation. So we can go back into Zapier. We can refresh our side panel here. If you don't see it immediately, just give it a second. But this comes up when you're inside the Zap. You can go to the Zap runs to see the history. Now, I don't have our run just yet, so it's just taking a moment, probably in creation right now. Let's refresh it again. And okay, good. We finally got the successful run. So let's take a look now, pop into Airtable and see if we got the information we expect. So in Airtable, we have the test bid, and you can see that it is incremented by 1 more than our last bid, and it starts with 16, properly linked to our test client. And perhaps one of the most cool features is we created that Google Drive folder so that our clients can just open up that folder, and once it loads, drop whatever they want in here. And of course, you can see that we have the exact quote number on the folder as well. So this is how you integrate a complete solution across different software like Asana and get it talking to Airtable so that you can build more customized workflows. I hope you got a ton of value from this video, and if you are interested in seeing the final product after we've shipped this off to our clients, let me know, because they have given us permission to share the full case study with you. Just shoot us an email. You can find our information on our website. I hope you got a ton of value from this video. Of course, if you got value from this, we'd love it if you could give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, keep on building.